Every night you lose consciousness. You get in bed, you close your eyes, your mind starts replaying the day, something you need to do tomorrow, an embarrassing moment from years ago, and then, at some point without realizing it, you black out. Not metaphorically, literally. Your awareness shuts off, your sense of time collapses, and the conscious version of you, the one watching this video right now, vanishes completely. Hours later, it comes back. And the strangest part is you almost never remember the exact moment it happened. You remember being awake and you remember waking up. But the transition itself, the exact moment you lose consciousness, is almost always missing. Most people assume the answer is simple. You were just asleep. But that explanation hides something deeply strange. Because your brain does not simply switch off when you fall asleep. In fact, during the first stages of sleep, some parts of your brain become more active than they are during the day, which raises an uncomfortable question. If your brain stays active while you fall asleep, why can't you remember the very moment you become unconscious? Scientists have been trying to answer this for more than a century, and the deeper they looked into it, the stranger it became. In the 1950s, sleep researcher Nathaniel Kleitman at the University of Chicago began noticing something mind-boggling inside his sleep laboratory. Subjects who had clearly fallen asleep according to their brain activity would insist they were still awake. Others believed they had fallen asleep instantly when recordings showed they had remained conscious for much longer. Again and again, people failed to accurately tell the moment sleep actually began. Kleitman realized something important. The transition into sleep is not something the brain cleanly experiences. It's something the brain gradually loses the ability to observe. As you begin falling asleep, the systems responsible for attention, self-awareness, and memory formation start shutting down at different times, not all at once. One of the first systems affected is the hippocampus. The hippocampus is the structure responsible for converting experiences into lasting memories. Right now, it's recording the memory of you watching this video. But during sleep onset, its ability to record memories rapidly begins to fade away. In the 1970s, psychiatrist Alan Hobson at Harvard Medical School became one of the first scientists to study this transition in detail. What he discovered was unsettling. As people drift towards sleep, thoughts start to break apart, logic weakens, memory formation destabilizes, which means something very strange starts happening. You may still be conscious enough to think, conscious enough to see images, conscious enough to experience fragments of awareness, but no longer conscious enough to fully remember any of it afterward. Scientists call this sleep onset amnesia, and almost everyone experiences it every single night, but that's only the beginning. Because just before sleep fully takes over, the brain enters one of the strangest states human beings can experience, a state called hypnagogia. The word comes from Greek roots meaning leading into sleep. And in that state, reality starts distorting. People hear voices that aren't there. They see flashes of faces, fragments of dreams, entire conversations. Some people suddenly feel like they're falling. Others hear someone call their name. In the late 1800s, French psychologist Alfred Maury documented these strange hallucinations in extraordinary detail after repeatedly studying his own descent into sleep. More than a century later, neuroscientists confirmed that he was observing a real neurological state where dream and reality overlap, and some of history's most creative minds deliberately used this state to generate new ideas. Inventor Thomas Edison and artist Salvador Dalí both used an unusual technique. They would sit in chairs holding metal objects while drifting towards sleep. The moment they lost consciousness, the object would fall, wake them up, and allow them to capture the surreal thoughts appearing in the transition state before sleep erased them. Because hypnagogia reveals something really disturbing. The brain does not clearly separate consciousness from dreaming. For a brief period, you experience both at the same time. In 2016, neuroscientists led by Giulio Tononi at the University of Wisconsin-Madison observed that as people drift into sleep, communication between different regions of the brain begins breaking apart. The unified experience you think of as you slowly starts breaking apart. Your awareness narrows. Your perception of time distorts. Your internal narrative weakens. And eventually, the system holding conscious experience together can no longer sustain itself. You don't notice the exact moment this happens for the same reason you can't watch yourself lose consciousness under anesthesia. The observer itself is shutting down, and a system cannot fully record its own disappearance while disappearing, but there may be something even stranger happening. Because some neuroscientists argue that sleep is not the absence of consciousness at all. It's a replacement of consciousness. In the 1970s, sleep researchers Michel Jouvet and Alan Hobson proposed that dreaming is not random noise. It is the brain actively generating an internal reality while the outside world disappears. As the external awareness vanishes, the brain turns inward. Memory fragments activate, emotions reorganize, dreams emerge. During REM sleep, visual regions of the brain can become extremely active, which means every night something astonishing happens. The reality around you disappears and your brain quietly builds a new one. But none of this fully explains the mystery itself. Why does the actual moment of falling asleep feel impossible to catch? Why can't you stay aware long enough to witness your own mind shutting down? One theory is that stable consciousness requires memory itself. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio has argued that to experience a continuous sense of self, your brain must constantly record the immediate past and connect it to the present moment. But as sleep begins, that connecting process starts failing. Thoughts are disconnected, and without memory linking one moment to the next, consciousness may stop feeling continuous at all. In other words, the reason you can't remember falling asleep may be because the version of you trying to observe the transition no longer exists by the time it happens, and yet humans trust this process completely. Every single night, you willingly surrender your consciousness, and somehow you believe you'll return, which is remarkable because if this happened randomly during the day, it would terrify you. If you fall unconscious for 8 hours in the middle of an afternoon meeting, you would call an ambulance. But because it happens at night in bed, surrounded by darkness, we call it sleep. And maybe that's the strangest part of all. For nearly 1/3 of your entire life, you repeatedly enter a state where the conscious version of you disappears completely. You never experience the exact moment it leaves. You never experience the exact moment it returns. There is only the last thought before oblivion and the first thought after it. Everything else is missing, and your brain seems designed to keep it that way.